What is happening? Transfers, decommitments. It feels like everything is falling apart for BC. Is this a reason to panic? We'll get into all of that on today's show.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, folks. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Thank you all for listening. And for all you everydayers out there that have made this part of your everyday routine, I want to welcome you. And for all you newbies, this is the only daily Boston College podcast out there. And I want to welcome each and every one of you to our show. Now, we had more roster turnover on Wednesday as another player entered the transfer portal. And recruiting took another blow. We're going to get into all of that. And then we're going to look at the bowl projections heading into bowl season. We're going to find that out on Sunday. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. Now, let's look at the first piece of news here. And that is sophomore running back Cam Barfield has entered the transfer portal. Now, he's actually a redshirt freshman because he actually was able to redshirt this year. But Barfield, he came here the same year as Alex Broom, came in listed at 5'8" and shrunk over the last year and a half to 5'6". But you know, sometimes recruiting high school players, they kind of juice their numbers a little bit. So he was a very small running back. Didn't play all that much. I think he ran 25 times for 53 yards last year and had 11 rushes this year. Averaged 1.4 yards. I remember him specifically in the Florida State game and the Syracuse game. He just never got things going. I mean, it was tough. He was tough sledding. He's a smaller running back. He wasn't that big. And he just didn't seem to have that burst that you would expect from a back that small. So he's gone. That's the third running back to leave in the last 2 days. Or 3 days, actually. Andre Hines, who was a practice squad player that fans fell in love with after that Syracuse game. He's gone. You lost Pat Garwo, who, had some potential and he was going to be the starter this year, but got hurt too. He's gone. And now you lost Barfield. So this begs the question. Actually, before we get into that, let's look at what the depth chart now looks at running back. Is the running back depth chart decimated? I have to say it's pretty thin right now. You have Kai Robichaux, good player, been hurt a bunch of times. Alex Broom, good player, been hurt a bunch of times. Dontrell Jones, who's a true freshman, haven't seen him play at all yet. And then you're going to bring in true freshman next year, Turbo Richard, who is a running back from South Carolina and easily the best name of any running back that BC has. So I look at this and I say to myself, okay, you lost some depth. That's clear. But how valuable was this depth? Garwo, I think is the biggest loss. You obviously could use a guy like Garwo. Garwo was reliable. He knew the system. He did a lot of stuff for your team. But I get why he left. He wasn't going to start. Robichaux's going to start. So maybe he just wants to go to a system that he can play and, maybe play with his brother at Temple or go closer to home. I don't know. But there's reasons. He could do that. Cam Barfield, no offense to the kid. I don't like bashing players, but he probably wasn't going to play a big role. And Andre Hines, I know some folks were like, why didn't he play more? Well, I mean, he was a practice squad player, and what he did against Syracuse was nothing more than being big and just running behind that awesome offensive line. So I get that. Now, BC has to address that. They could still, and we could talk about true freshmen, they could still be looking at some true freshmen to come in. But I think what they really need to do is look at the transfer portal. And what I would love to see is for them to go for a bigger running back this time. And I want guys that aren't 5'6" and 5'8" like Broom, like Xavier Coleman, like Cam Barfield. That doesn't work in what they're trying to do in this offense. And so I hope that what they're looking for is a guy like Cartavius Norton. And why do I bring up Cartavius Norton? Cartavius Norton was a high school teammate of, wait for it, Thomas Castellanos. He is a 6'2", 220-pound running back. Played for Iowa State. He's in the transfer portal. Staff is following him. He could be someone to watch. I think he would be a guy that would be a great fit to add depth. I don't know what he can do, but I want bigger guys. I think BC just needs to build bigger guys into what their depth is. Like you're losing Barfield. We don't know what's going on with Xavier Coleman yet, but you have a smaller back like Brum, maybe just one. Dontrell Jones is a little bit bigger, but he's not bruising, and Turbo Richards is probably around the same size as Jones. So you'd love to have another big back. And I think that is what BC has to handle in the transfer portal. Now, back to the transfer portal, because I think this is the big conversation that everyone's having. Literally every single time I post a transfer portal announcement, people freak out. It's like you can wind a watch to this, because every time that's like, oh, there's the program, last guy shut off the lights, ha ha ha. Is it really that atypical what's going on with BC? And the answer is yes and no. I don't think it's that atypical, but their numbers are higher. If you look at NC State, who has 2, you look at Syracuse, who has 5, which is pretty similar, because if you consider Alex Washington not a transfer, it like end of season, BC's at 6. Wake Forest has more. They have 7 since the end of the season. Pitt is right there with them. So peer schools are pretty similar to what BC has. And the guys that you're losing are guys that aren't, Salah and Garwo are probably the exception, but most of these guys were evaluation guys that you brought in as true freshmen, and maybe they're just not fitting in. And then you go ahead and you look at somebody else. You try to grab somebody that maybe fits better in the transfer portal. There's nothing wrong with that. I expect at least 3 to 4 more. So we're looking at maybe 12, and that's about what they had last year, players to transfer out. Yeah, the situation at BC isn't great right now. You have a coach that is from a 3-9 season to a 6-6 season. Feels like he's a little bit on the hot seat. And things are a little bit more precarious. And in a moment, I'm going to talk about recruiting, because recruiting news is not good right now. And we'll get into all of that in just a moment. Now, your ride or die is the most important thing to you. You need to go to eBay Motors. eBay Motors is the place for your ride or die. Now, passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the winning trophy, is also what keeps it alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit for your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. This is Locked On BC, AJ Black. And as I was saying, the mood around the fan base for Boston College right now is in a tough spot. And I don't blame you guys at all. You have every right to be concerned, upset, frustrated with where things are going. And one thing that you are frustrated about is the current state of recruiting. Now, BC going into last night had 9 commitments after Christian Zamore decommitted, or is no longer committed. And I had told you, if you had followed along on our VIP boards, you would know that I said there was one other news item coming up and it wasn't going to be good. Well, it broke on Wednesday night, and that was that tight end Jackson Santiago is no longer committed as well. This was another one that was not, again, I'm telling you from talking to my sources, and I know a bunch of different people that I've talked to about this and can confirm it. This is not a, I'm not going to BC because they stink situation, or Halfley stinks, or whatever you're thinking. This was a more of the, like, things were happening that just they had to move apart. And I can't get into details on what that is, but it just was not a situation that would have worked. So that being said, Jackson Santiago is the second tight end that's decommitted from BC. Benjamin Blackburn flipped to Stanford earlier in this offseason. Let's look at where BC's recruiting class is, and get yourself a big glass of scotch because this is a tough one to swallow. BC's committed recruiting class right now is 106th, according to 247. They are dead last in the ACC. And this is the worst recruiting class that BC has had in over a decade. And as far back as I can think, this is bar none. Now, what's missing? They don't have a top end player. They had Keondae Henry. He's no longer there. Josiah Martin, he's gone. Like, the decommitment list is huge. And yeah, some of that has to do with other teams poaching, BC not playing well. But it's concerning. But what is the realistic, like, folks have been asking me, like, what are the realistic expectations for this class? So first, you need to know what the class size should have been for BC. Right now, it's at 8. Last time I talked to the staff, it was projected to be around between 12 and 15. So they're down like 4 or 5. But that is concerning in that it's dropped that low because they were at that about 2 months ago. It looked like the class was full. Now the staff has to go and reevaluate players, try to get flips, see if they can poach players off of teams that maybe have new coaches. There's a lot of different options out there. But there's still a couple weeks left, and it's a live period coming up where recruits can come on campus. So I expect, and I was confirmed one name that I had no clue that they were involved with, but a little birdie told me about it. There's some names out there, Henry Hasselback is one that has been floating around for a while. Sayer Torrance, a wide receiver that decommitted from Syracuse and Michigan State, though based off of some of the things he said on Twitter today, it looks like he might be back at Syracuse. But there's a bunch of names. And so I'm concerned because I hope that they can close this out. You'd hope that they can fill those spots. You hope that they can figure out a way to get to 13 and then just fill in from the transfer portal from there. But I worry that it's been since June, I believe, since BC's had a commitment. Charlie Camella, I think, is the last one that they had. But it feels like it's been ages since they've had positive recruiting momentum. And Jeff Havley, he came in as the guy, like you were expecting a good recruiter, and it feels like it's fallen off. There's no, you went 3-9, and I think it's important to realize that most of these kids started their recruitment their junior year, and they were recruited when it was 3-9. So there's a piece of that, but the staff should be able to fix that with, they had a better season, all that. And it still feels like they're trudging through sludge right now to get through this. So I get it. Like it's worrisome what's going on right now. You got to hope. I mean, like as a BC fan, you got to hope that they can figure out a way to bring in 3, 4, 5 more guys. They don't have a quarterback, and I'm not sure with Thomas Castellanos if they're going to be able to get one in the transfer portal. But I mean, just go back to what happened this year. They whiffed on 5, 6 guys that were on the top of our big board. It's I don't know if it's the NIL thing, if it's the state of the program, the hot seat with Jeff Halfley, where they're at, but it just feels like there's no momentum at all. And so you have this like historically bad. I mean, you look at their top recruit, Judah Pruitt, who is fine, but he should not be a top recruit. And it just showcases that the struggles that they're having, the struggles the staff is having. And believe me, they're aware. They're aware that, they look at the numbers whenever they're, and I talk to the staff, they know what's going on when on the 247 rankings and rivals rankings and all that kind of stuff. It's just right now that you've got a month and you got a little, they got about 2 to 3 weeks to get through this early signing period. And then there's more time after that. We're going to have to wait and see what happens. BC's been active in the transfer portal. I can tell you that they've had like 7-8 offers going out now, but it's right now they've got so much to do in terms of roster building. They got a lot of their returners coming back, but as we saw with this team last year, they lack depth. Like I look at the secondary or linebacking group, they need to build depth. And through the transfer portal and commitments, that's what they got to do. And it hasn't happened yet. Now, in our final segment, we're going to wrap things up. We're going to look at bowl games that BC has been linked to. I'll tell you which of the awesome, fantastic bowls BC could be heading to next. You're going to want to hear what I have to say about those in just a moment. Now, PrizePicks is your place to go when you want to make some extra money with daily fantasy. It's the most fun I've had. I make up to 25 times my money this football season. Now I can play during basketball season too. I just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and boom, place their entry. With the basketball season here, you can pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players, such as LeBron James and Travis Kelce, at 10.5 combo of 3 points made and receptions. Want to make plays besides some of your PrizePick favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz? Go to the community plays under the promo tabs and make your picks. PrizePicks even offers a reboot policy, so if there's injuries, you're covered. I love things like Anthony Davis with 2 or more blocks, Damian Lillard with 4.3, made it 4.3, 4 3-pointers made. It's all that goodness right there, right? So go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. This is Locked On BC. I'm your host, AJ Black. We're wrapping things up here. We're going to talk a little bit about bowls because on Sunday, BC will find out what ACC bowl they are going to. Now, depending on who you listen to, there's different prognosticators, and some of them know things and some don't. I'm more partial to Brad Campbell of 247. Obviously, I'm a 247 guy. I work for them. He was 75% right last year on his projections for what bowl matchups were going to be. That's 3 out of 4. That's pretty good. And what he projects for BC is not what you've been reading everywhere. And if you're looking on the screen right now on YouTube, you see Fenway Park. Most other bowl projections have BC at Fenway playing SMU, UTSA. Brad Campbell has them at the Pinstripe Bowl against Rutgers. That seems like a more ambitious. Obviously, the Pinstripe Bowl has more prestige. It's like higher on the bowl pecking order. And I mean, if it was going to come down to the 2 of those, I would rather them play in the Pinstripe Bowl. Though playing Rutgers scares the crap out of me because, and I hate saying that because it's Rutgers for goodness sake. But they had a good defense and they had a running attack. They had the top running back, Kyle Monagny, or I'm totally messing his name up. They have the top running back in the Big Ten. BC has one of the worst rush defenses in the country. So I don't want to see BC play Rutgers, but that might be what happens. They also could be at Fenway if you believe the other prognosticators, and against a team like UTSA that also scares me because UTSA has one of the best coaches in the country, Jeff Traylor. a guy who's been linked to a bunch of different jobs. I've seen him linked to Duke, to Texas A&M, everywhere. And that would be a really tough out if they had to play that game. It just kind of shows you where BC's at right now. Now, a month of Thomas Castellanos healing himself a little bit, getting himself whatever banged up body part is going on. He looked a lot better against Miami, and his Pro Football Focus grade was awesome. I think it was like an 87. But I think a whole month of him, just settling down and practicing would be huge. So maybe he could have a breakout game. But that defense scares me. And on top of that, I expect guys like Christian Mahogany not to play. There may be other guys that are leaving. Elijah Jones disappeared. I don't think, I don't expect him back. But, there may be another player here or there that sits out. Kyle Hergel, another one. So you might have two brand new guards in that game. And that worries me as well, because I don't know who you're going to play. You're going to play Dwayne Halleck and Kevin Klein or Jackson Ness. I don't know. But those are the bowls, and we will have all that insight on Monday when we go live to talk about that. So that's the bowl stuff. I told you guys we're going to talk basketball tonight, but I totally forgot that the tip-off was 9:15, and I love y'all. If you guys know me, I love all of my listeners here, but I ain't staying up till 11 o'clock to start recording. I'm sorry. I got a day job, and I can't be going in dreary on a Thursday to work. So I'm going to record this, and then tomorrow I will go over the Vanderbilt game. But tomorrow as well, we're going to have Eagle Insider writer Kate Otis on. She covers now our women's basketball coverage, and this is going to be her first podcast guest spot, and she's going to talk a little bit about football. She's going to get her perspective on what BC should be going after in the transfer portal. We'll hear a little bit about women's basketball too. So Kate will be joining us. I hope you guys join us for that. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247, and head over to Eagle Insider to get all our coverage over there. The message board has been going absolutely nuts over the last couple days. Lots of good conversations going on there. There's a whole thread about Mitch's comments about BC being content to be 6-6 and stop complaining about that kind of stuff. And you can hear what other fans had to say about that. Head on over to Eagle Insider. Check that all out. And make sure you're back tomorrow for Locked On Boston College, your team every day.